Hey guys, it's Matt here. Time for another year video. This is going to be the top 70 albums of 1979. It's been a while since I've done one of these year videos. I'd forgotten what a pain in the ass they are. Just spent the last easily 2 hours trying to find these 70 CDs. I had some I was looking for that I could not find. Marianne Faithfull's Broken English. I decided not to do Led Zeppelin's Into the Outdoor because we all know that album. A lot of the things that I like to show you guys are things that I think that are a little slightly off the beaten path, not obscure, although there will be some obscurities, but just things I think you guys should know about besides the obvious. And of course, I include plenty of obvious things too, so it's not like I'm only going for obscure's sake. So anyways, and if I was going to be doing EPs, I'm getting this off the top of my head now before I forget, I would have showed you guys The Cost of Living by The Clash and that first Black Flag EP. What's it called? Wasted? I can't remember what it's called. Anyways, love those. All right, let's do my top 10 first. Probably no surprise if you saw my UK punk albums of the 70s video. My favorite album of 1979 is London Calling. I don't understand the British accusation that this is too American. What's American about this album? I don't know. I mean, I don't hear too many American influences. But whatever, you know, I'm not the nationalist in that regard that they would be when they're talking about The Clash. So I love it. I've always loved it. It's my favorite album of 79. And I don't think I would change too much. But this is like the last truly great double album of the 70s. Unless you're going to count Pink Floyd's The Wall, which came out after this, so that might be the last in terms of what was released later in 79, but I don't think it's as good an album as this. But it's pretty damn good, and it's coming up. All right, so The Clash, London Calling. My second choice is going to be weird, since I don't usually include compilations in my shows, but I got to include Buzzcocks Singles Going. So it's better than any of their albums. And most of these songs are not on the LPs. Now this expanded CD I have has a bit too much. I think it's got the singles in 79 when they weren't as good. But the original album, oh well, like I said, these are bonus tracks. The original album as released in 79 was perfect. Every track a killer. This is the greatest, you know, UK punk greatest hits album ever, probably. But certainly that was released in the 70s. Buzzcocks, Singles Going Steady. All right, third choice, Pretenders. Now I know I mentioned this on my UK punk show as well. A lot of sites will tell you this album was released in 1980. Maybe it was. But on this particular Rhino CD, it has a December 1979 date. Robert Christgau, I think, put it as a 79 release, but maybe critics got it early, I don't know. Anyways, I've decided to use it for 79 and not 1980. I love the record. I think Mystery Achievement might be my favorite Pretenders song ever, but every song is great. There's, you know, punky stuff on side one. There's the more pop stuff on side two, but the whole album works as a fantastic classic debut LP. They never bettered this, folks. All right. Chrissy and Co. Number 4 is Costello's Armed Forces. Now, this is the American cover. This was the UK cover. All right. When I first got into Elvis, this was my favorite album of his. If you watch my 77 and 78 shows, I ranked Costello albums at number 1 each year. This is meant as number, what, 3, 4? 4. But it's still a 5-star classic. Every song is great. I wouldn't change it. Don't have a preference for which version is better. Like I grew up with the American version, but the English version is just as good. All right, so there you go. Elvis Costello and the Attractions. Armed Forces is my number 4 choice. Number 5 is The Police, Regata de Blanc. We played the hell out of this. All right, every Police album is good, if not great. First album's pretty good. This one, of course, is better. This is just chock full of hits, or at least, you know, songs that they played on the radio. Message in a Bottle. Oh God, I gotta be able to read this. Bad Week Without You should be on here, right? Yeah. Oh, Walking on the Moon. Yeah. Anyways, sorry guys, can't read it. That's my 60, almost 61 this month. Year Old Eyes. Regarded Blank is a better album than the first one, Orlando More. So this is their first really good album. It's virtually a classic, and has 1979 written all over it. Number 6 is another album I played to death when I was younger. Look Sharp by Joe Jackson. Again, he never bettered this. It's like The Pretenders. Although the second album was great too, and that's going to be on this show too. I'm the man. I love every song. Maybe something like, Throw It Away took the longest to grow on me, but that's a good song too. I mean, wall to wall, great power pop, post-punk, whatever you want to call it. Almost as good as Costello, you know? I mean, love it. That's my 6th choice. 7, just synced this with a friend the other night. Madness, One Step Beyond. You know what? I go back and forth as to whether this is a better album than the Specials' first record, in terms of those two-tone LPs. The Selector was 79 too. I forgot about that until just now. Oh well, it's another one I forgot to show you guys. But I just listened to this and I love every song. Maybe, Land of Hope and Glory might be my least favorite, but people love that number, so maybe it's just me. This is a stunning album, great ska, and, it makes me reminiscent for a time in England that I never knew, I mean, that whole punk and post-punk era from 76, 77, 78, 79, and into the early 80s was just fabulous, I thought. So, anyways, what is this, 8? Our favorite Canuck, Neil Young, Russ Never Sleeps. Well, we love this one too. God, this is a stunning return to form. I liked Comes a Time in 78, maybe more than American Stars and Bars in 77, but I like some of the songs on American Stars and Bars more than the best songs on Comes a Time. This, though, was both consistent and had great songs. It's all live, half acoustic, half electric. You know what it is. You've heard it. The last truly classic batch of songs he'd come up with for maybe, 10 years? I don't know. All right, and this is recorded in 78, by the way. Number 9 is Unknown Pleasures. Joy Division. That's correct. Hold on a sec. Another stunning debut. Just did my Joy Division and New Order show not too long ago, December, I think. You guys know I love this band. I was 14 years old when this stuff came out, and I wasn't hip to a lot of stuff at the time. I wasn't hip to Joy Division at the time. I would later, subsequently get into this stuff, but I would get into it in a big way. And again, I was sad that it passed me by at the time. But where was I going to hear this? I was in San Diego. The local rock station was KGB. I think they even had KPRI then. They weren't going to play stuff like this. I had to get hip to this on my own. I had to read about it because I didn't have any older brothers or older friends turn me on to this kind of stuff either. So, anyways, but I'll tell you what we were into. My number 10 choice, Pink Floyd, The Wall. Now, this is divisive. Even a lot of Floyd fans call this is the old Fidelity. Even a lot of Floyd fans call this, a Roger Waters wine fest. We loved this album. I mean, everyone was listening to Led Zeppelin's Into the Outdoor before this, and then when this came out, they blew that album out of the water. This was twice as good as that. And it was huge virtually all through 1980. We forgot about Pink Floyd in 1981, and in 82, the movie came out, and that was hip too. So, I mean, it's like, take your pick. It's the last gasp of classic rock in the 70s. It's the last gasp of progressive rock in the 70s. It came out in late 79, and it dominated that whole Christmas season, going well into the new year, and then they toured. I never saw Pink Floyd, though. I never saw them ever. So I still love it. Pink Floyd, The Wall is my number 10 choice. Symbolic of a few things. All right, 11 through 20, guys. I still love all these records. We're not into, merely great. This stuff is classic. This is 11 through 20. Number 11 is AC/DC, Highway to Hell. This was the first album to break them big. And of course, the last one I'm going to have Bon Scott, you know, classics galore. Can I read it? Hell yeah, I can read it. Highway to Hell, Girls Got Rhythm, Walk All Over You, Touch Too Much, Beat Around the Bush. I like all those songs. Shot Down in Flames. I used to get that song stuck in my head. Shot Down in Flames. Get It Hot. If You Want Blood. You know, that's from the live album, which came out the year before. Love Hungry Man and Night Prowler. I know all those songs, you know, as I say them, and they just... Is this a better album than, you know, something like Let There Be Rock? I don't know, but it's certainly more successful. I mean, you heard these songs on the radio. This was the album that broke them and prepared the world, at least America, for Back in Black the next year. All right? I love it. That's a classic hard rock headbanging album. That's number 11. Number 12, back to post-punk, Gang of Four, Entertainment. If you get this CD, it also has the yellow EP. A lot of these punk albums I showed you on my UK punk show. I get some of these songs stuck in my head. I love Not a Great Man, Damaged Goods. At Home, He's a Tourist. It's Not Made for Great Man. That one sticks in my head. It's Not Made for Great Man. Anyways, they had a great sound, too, that was kind of purloined a bit in later years by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. These guys were better, though. All right, and again, they never bettered this. All right, it's number 12. Number 13, another stunning debut. B-52s from Georgia, Athens, Georgia. You know, I liked Pylon at the time, too. I guess Pylon didn't have an album until... They were releasing stuff in 79, though, weren't they? They didn't do an album until 81. Anyways. And then we had REM. But this, I've never found a really good sounding CD of this until this. This is a French CD that I picked up online because they said it sounded good, and it does. I don't know if this album's ever been properly remastered, but it is a classic. Guys, when I was growing up in the 80s in San Diego, listening to 91X, which was the post-punk radio station, Planet Claire, 52 Girls, Dances Mess Around, Rock Lobster, Lava, there's a Moon in the Sky, he called them. They played those songs all the time. So, like this album had just been released. This is one of the best albums of 1979. One of the best debuts, for sure. All right? That's 13. 14, one of my favorite bands at the time, Fear of Music. I love the first two of Talking Heads albums, too. This is better. This could be their best album. Fear of Music. Oh, look, you can't see a damn thing. You know? But it's got cities on it. They're working with Eno. They're exploring third world rhythms. You know, if you are into King Crimson, you like the Discipline album from 2 years later in 81, they took their cue a lot from an album like this. You know, even Adrian Belew, you know, who was in The Heads, sounded like David Byrne. So this is stunning. You know, it's weird that music doesn't sound like this anymore because it's not progressive, it's not experimental in the way that it still was in the late 70s. All right? That was 14. 15, time for some classic rock. Tom Petty's Damn the Torpedoes. This was a big album right when it came out. He was well liked right away. This was the album that broke him, kind of like AC/DC. He'd had two albums which I enjoyed before this. I think I put them both in my shows for 76 and 78. But this, Damn the Torpedoes, this is the old Mo-Fi version. We loved it. You know, I mean, again, these songs, Refugee, Here Comes My Girl, Even the Losers, Don't Do Me Like That, all played on the radio. All right? Damn Torpedoes, the first big one of his. He would have many more. And he was steady all through like the mid-90s. All right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 15. 16. The Specials. Told you it was coming up. Like I said, on another day, I would pick this over Madness. I just happened to play the Madness album the other day. But yeah, this is great too. A Message to You, Rudy, to the Dog. It's Up to You, Nightclub. Doesn't make it all right. Concrete Jungle, Monkey Man, Bigger, Bigger, Bigger Monkey. It is the dawning. Oh, well, I'm not going to sing them all to you. This is a 5-star album. We're still in the 5-star territory, folks. I consider these albums classics. All right? That was 16. 17 also synced this album with a friend of the night, DeGueo, ZZ Top. I like every song on here. Oh, I don't, something like Manic Mechanic is, that's the one song that's kind of eye-rolling, but everything else I love. I Thank You. I think I heard that before I heard Sam and Dave's version. She Loves My Automobile. I'm Bad, I'm Nationwide. That's one of her best songs. Fool for Your Stockings is a good blues tune. They do an okay version of Dust My Broom. Cheap Sunglasses is one of their, and then Esther Be the One is another great one. So there you go, folks. DeGueo. Is this their last great album? I'm going to say no, because I like El Loco and I like Eliminator. I don't care that it's got that 80s production. I love the songs. So ZZ Top. Hell yeah. That's 17. 18, Motorhead, first of two. They released 2 albums this year. I like Overkill better. I used to like Bomber better. I glommed onto Bomber first. Now, over the years, I've come to appreciate Overkill more. This is stunning. This is, we're talking, what do you want to call this? Hard rock, metal. Who gives a shit? It's this classic headbanging stuff. Pick it up, folks, if you're even remotely interested in hard rock. 16, 17, 18, 19, The Undertones, one of the great Irish bands. Another great debut. See, there was so much exciting punk and post-punk music at the time. It was so, and look at all those bonus tracks, and they're good on this CD. Farragut Sharkey. Yeah. Never made it in America, which is unfortunate. U2 released, just did my U2 show, an EP or a single with 3 songs in 79, but Undertones had a whole album, as did the Stiff Little Fingers, and they're going to come up too. All right, for my number 20 choice, I tell you guys about my infatuation, or my then infatuation, with Michael Schenker and UFO. This is my Strangers in the Night box set where they record. This is a live album. They recorded all the shows. What is this? This is how many CDs? 5, 6, 7, 8 CDs, where they were recording these songs in the same sequence to make the Strangers in the Night album. It's awesome. I don't get tired of it. Kicks ass. UFO. Almost immediately lost interest in UFO after this album, though. I know that other people like them still, but we're not done with Schenker either this year, because I'm going to show you guys the Scorpions album he played on after this. All right, that's my top 20. So this is obviously a combination of albums I was into at the time and stuff that I have glommed onto subsequently. All right, there's 21 through 30. Big Graham Parker guy. I should do a Graham Parker show. I like all of his albums from the 70s, although I don't know if I've included them all in my shows. Squeezing Out Sparks is the first big one. This kind of broke him in the States. Something he was not able to capitalize on, but, I loved it. I want to say this was the first Graham Parker album I ever owned. And then I got Howlin' Wind, I think. Discovering Japan's Great Local Girls. There was a video for that because I used to see it. Nobody Hurt You, You Can't Be Too Strong. Passion, There's No Ordinary Word. Yeah, Saturday Night is Dead. Waiting for the UFOs. And then there's a live, show on here too. So it's live Sparks. Love It. Squeezing Out Sparks. The Jam, Setting Suns. Maybe not quite as great as the album that came before this and the one that came after this, but it's still damn good. This is still well in its prime, There were no weak Jam albums at the time. I still, this is kind of like a concept album, but I never really needed to hear it that way. All right, did my whole Jam show, so if you want to hear me talk about anything with the Jam more, listen to it there. That's with 23. XTC, Drums and Wires. There was just this unrelenting barrage of great music coming out of England at the time. If you were, a young kid like me, really setting up the 80s. The 80s, I think, being the last time America was really receptive to all of these great British bands. And back in the 90s, when they had the whole Britpop scene, I don't know. I mean, I wasn't into college. I wasn't in college at the time, so I don't know how Americans, young kids in the States responded to music like that. I liked it, but I turned 30 years old in 1995, so I mean, I didn't have my ear to the ground in terms of what young people were into, but we loved all this stuff at the time. XTC, this is their breakthrough album. All right. Now they'd had 2 albums in '78, both, pretty good, but this was great. I mean, most every song on here is like a pop gem. Drums and Wires, 1, 2, 3, 3. 24, the second really good Joe Jackson album of the year is I'm the Man, almost as good as Look Sharp. Damn. Anyways, yeah, I mean, I love everything on here. On Your Radio, I used to crank that. Geraldine and John, kind of cute. It's different for girls. I'm the Man. I'm the Man and On the Radio were just fantastic, fast-paced songs. Don't want to be like that. Get that. Anyways, not quite as good as Look Sharp, but close. 24, 25. I gotta squeeze this in. Live Rust. This came out in '79. It was the second live album, same tour as Rust Never Sleeps. Therefore, I think this was recorded in '78. But it was kind of like Neil Young's greatest hits. Only a couple of years after Decade, which was an extended Neil Young's greatest hits. But he had such a vast catalog of great music at this time, going right back, down to Buffalo Springfield, that we were eating up everything that he was doing. Live Rust, still one of his best live albums. All right. 25, 26 is the incredible. You know what? I should have rated this higher. Stiff Little Fingers. This is probably a better album than The Undertones. I don't know why when I was looking at it this morning I put it after that, but this is pure punk and this is fantastic. And their singles were great too. Stiff Little Fingers. Okay, but Inflammable Material is what they're going to be remembered for, LP-wise. Although if I was going to make me a compilation of Stiff Little Fingers, I'd put a lot of their 45s on there, plus a healthy dose of this album too. But there you go, I keep saying that, one of the great debuts of '79. All right. Okay, that was 26. 27, perhaps people think I'm rating this kind of high. The Eagles, The Long Run, it was all over the radio. I have always been an Eagles fan. I'm not one of those guys who thinks he wants to sound hip by saying the Eagles suck. Believe me, before the dude said that on the Big Lebowski, a lot of people were saying that. I've never had a problem with them. They've always been one of those bands that soundtrack my life. I grew up in Southern California. I'm still here. They were all over the radio growing up, and even as an adult. So, and a lot of their famous songs come from this album. They're not country rock anymore by this point, but they're just a great classic rock band. All right, 27, 28. It's an American New Wave album, The Cars, Candio. At the time, I thought, Verge, not as good as the first one, but kind of high. I still think it's one of their best albums. This is the Mo-Fi version. I mean, Let's Go is classic. Since I Held You, It's All I Can Do. Double Life, they put stuff on Should We Do, Candio. I love that song. Night Spots, You Can't Hold On Too Long. Got a lot on my head. And So Is Dangerous Type. Fuck, this and their first album might be the 2 best Cars albums. I don't know. Candio is pretty, well, this is Candio. Heartbeat City is pretty great too. Anyways, there you go. That was, what? That's 28. 29. I should probably have had this one higher too. Off the Wall is the first great Michael Jackson album. I remember, when I was in junior high school, a bunch of the kids had put up a poster of The Wall in our cafeteria. But a bunch of the African American kids had put a poster up Off the Wall. So they're both big at the same time. And this is a classic too. It's still got elements of disco on it, but some of his best songs are on here. This was Thriller before Thriller. Thriller was just Off the Wall times 2. But this is, if Thriller is his best album, Off the Wall is probably his second best album. And at the time, even when Thriller was big, people thought it wasn't quite as good as this. So let's not forget Off the Wall. All right, number 30, Tusk. I think the last great Mac album. I did my Fleetwood Mac show. I like the albums from the 80s, but they're very pop. This is at least kind of like experimental Lindsey Buckingham pop. Therefore, it's got something of an edge to it, which I think that when they came back and did, you know, Mirage or whatever, or Tango in the Night, there was no edge left of Fleetwood Mac. I love this album. This is a great double album. Another, you know, one of those last great double albums of the 70s, and this is worth remembering, folks. All right, that's my top 30. Let's do 31 through 40. Ugh, I gotta pull it over here. All right. Some of you Bowie fanatics are wondering when I'm gonna get to Lodger. All right, Lodger's a real good one. It's not as famous, you know, as like Low or maybe even Heroes, but every time I play this album, I think this is really good. We should remember this more than we do. Again, he's experimenting. He's got some of the third world rhythms on here. Fantastic Voyage, African Night Flight, Assassin, Red Sails, DJ, and Look Back in Anger, and Boys Keep Swinging all in a row. Those were the hits. Those were, I think they even have videos, or at least some of them did. I mean, this is the old Ryko CD. There's nothing wrong with it. Sounds great. That's 31. 32, I couldn't believe I couldn't find my damned Machine Gun Etiquette. I did my damn show like a year ago. Where is that? Anyways, I found my other damn CDs, but not this one. This is a wonderful album, Machine Gun Etiquette, way better than their second LP. Well, maybe not as immediate as Damn, 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 but probably as good if you compare it cut for cut, you know? I love it. I love it. This is, if this could be a contender for their best album. This, Damn, Damn, Damned, you know, the Black Album, Strawberries. I love all those records, but this is great. All right. That's 3132. 33, UK Subs, Another Kind of Blues. I love their first two albums and their singles. They're a band, you know, like Stiff Little Fingers, where all the action wasn't just on, and the singles sometimes had different mixes than the LP versions. So again, this is a straight punk album. Still, you know, England's still producing straight punk albums 2 years after the year of punk in 77. I love it. Another Kind of Blues, UK Subs. All right, 31 through 2, that's 33. 34, let's get a little metal here for you. This is the live Judas Priest album, Unleashed in the East. This was the first Judas Priest album I can remember hearing on the radio. You know, they were getting more and more popular. This was something, it kind of paved the way for British Steel the next year, because that was really played. But this is one of those great live albums where it's like every song is like at least as good as its studio counterpart. And, you know, you get to hear Green Man Alicia on here, and which I think I heard this live version before I heard the studio one. But awesome. Unleashed in the East. That's 34. The Last, LA Explosion. This is an LA band. This is like a, you know, kind of a post-punk or whatever. They're not really punk, but new wave. This is a Japanese one with the OB here. But if you've never heard this, you should pick it up. I show you that. I think this was recorded before 1979, but I can't remember now. I should have. This is something I probably should have researched a bit before I showed you guys this, but it's pretty cool. You know, these guys were just a local band. They never really made it anywhere. But, you know, if you were going to shows in LA, and I was not because I was living in San Diego, I'm sure these guys were great. You know, along with other bands like The Quick, and, you know, there was a lot of emerging punk and, you know, post-punk bands and new power pop, you know, which The Last, some of their songs could be considered. So, yeah, I mean, this should be remembered. All right, 31, 32, 33, 34, this is 35, 36. You know, PIL, Metal Box. This is something that I didn't get into this one at the time. I got this a few years later when I was in college, say 5, 6 years later, maybe even 7 years later. But when I was living in the fraternity in Theta Chi fraternity and at SDSU, I played this album a lot. This was my favorite PIL album at the time. All right, it still is. The first album is good, but it's abrasive. This is abrasive, but in a kind of a dub way where you can play it. I never had the vinyl, and the vinyl enthusiasts will tell you that's the way to really hear this record. So, you know, I've only just had CDs, but I love this CD box I got in my hand. All right. Okay, so that's what, 35? 36 is Bomber, like I told you. I love that cover too. Motorhead. I liked this before I liked Overkill, but now I think Overkill is a better album. See, 79. This is still when Motorhead were just kings. I mean, I call them a metal band. I know that they don't call themselves. I mean, Lemmy didn't think of himself as a metal musician, but come on, what rocks harder than this? You know, love this stuff. All right, so it's 6 or 7. 30. I'm sorry. Yeah, 38 is Van Morrison, Into the Music. I don't even have a remastered CD. This is the same CD I've had for decades. You know, so played this at the time. He hadn't had an album this good in years. I mean, when's the last time that I put a Van Morrison album on my top 70 albums of the 70s shows? But this is a great record. I liked it, and he wouldn't make a better one for a while. So, Into the Music. All right, and 39. You know what? I'm gonna say that 39 is Robert Fripp's Exposure. Now, this is the big box set of, you know, you get Blu-rays and everything's remastered, and you know it's impossible to even get through these things. It's part of the King Crimson, you know, series. Good Lord, 32 discs in here. You know, it's insane, right? But it's a great album. If you've never heard, there hadn't been a King Crimson record in '79 since '75's live album USA. Hadn't been a studio King Crimson album since '74's Red. So Red came out the same year as Stardust and Bible Black. So we were just digging this. This is you know, he'd worked with Bowie on Heroes. He had worked with Peter Gabriel, you know, on his stuff. Daryl Hall. But this was the first Robert Fripp album, Exposure. And so when they did this big box set, of course I snatched it up. And if you got the money, it's got his other stuff, like Frippertronics stuff, and that League of Gentlemen album from '81, and the one he did in 1980 under Heavy something Manners. I don't remember. It has a track with David Byrne on it. Anyways, all that stuff's on here. So, and number 40 is going to be the return on my show of the Kinks. Low budget. By this point, they had gone through the meat grinder, and they were one of the greatest bands ever in the 60s and the early 70s. And they just kind of became like a vehicle for Ray's concept albums for a while with the Preservation records and soap opera and, school kids or whatever in disgrace. Then they kind of came back to making regular rock albums with, Sleepwalker and whatever. But I like this one the best of the late 70s albums. Low budget. They're being played on the radio again. They were like an arena rock band. They were touring, although I don't know if they were playing arenas, come to think of it. But they were still kind of building their fame and prestige in America, which they shouldn't have had to do. They've been around since the British invasion. But I liked this record at the time. And, the Who didn't have an album in '79. They did have the Kids Will Write record, which I almost thought about putting on here, but I like that better as a movie than I do as an album. Anyways, low budget. You guys know I compare the Kinks and the Who. That's why I brought it up. Okay, that's my top 40. Let's do 41 through 50. Okay. This is one of those albums I was telling you about earlier where I want to turn you on to it. This is Roy Loney, who used to be in the earlier version of the Flaming Groovies. This is an album that it didn't get much exposure. I had to read about it. Roy Loney and the Phantom Movers. It's called Out After Dark. That was what the LP backside looked like. It's wonderful. I love it. If I could have been like a DJ or a program director at the time, I'd have told my station to hype this album because it's one of those things where it's like it's really cool, but you know it's just not going to sell. It's people aren't going to, kids aren't going to think, oh, that's cool, I want to be like him. But it's a great record. So there you go, Roy Loney and the Phantom Movers. Out After Dark, a Matt recommendation. That's my number 41. Here's a much more popular album, which we all played and had at the time. Supertramp, Breakfast in America, Gone Hollywood, The Logical Song, all over the radio. Goodbye Stranger, all over the radio. Breakfast in America, Take the Long Way Home. Man, you know, we loved this stuff. We loved Crime of the Century too, you know, and that one from '77 was pretty good too. But this, I think Supertramp were at their peak of popularity in America at this time. All right, that's 42. 42. You can come and see me. And this is Bob Dylan's Slow Train Comin'. He's got, Mark Knopfler on here. I'm going to have a Mark Knopfler album coming up. I'm a major Dylan fan. So of the three religious albums, born again Christian albums he made from 79 through 81, this is the best one, I think, easily. And I like it. I also like it more than I can never remember the name. 1978. I can never remember the name. That just shows you it doesn't stick in my head. He's standing on the corner looking out. Anyways, it's also better than Hard Rain, It isn't as good as Desire from 76, but it's worthy, and I do like it. And You Gotta Serve Somebody was like one of the last hits he had on the radio for a long time. That's a top 40 hit, right? I mean, did he ever again have a top 40 hit? Maybe not. All right. That's 43. 44, Eat to the Beat. I have not had too much success showing you guys Blondie albums on my shows. I forgot to show you Blondie on my 1976 show because I thought that was a 77 release. That's a great album. I didn't show you the 77 album, I'm Touched by Your Presence, Dear. I can't remember what it's called. No, it's called Plastic Letters, right? Because I don't think it's that great. I did show you Parallel Lines, which I love, and I love Eat to the Beat too. Not quite as good as Parallel Lines, but plenty of really wonderful material on here. Dreaming is one of my favorite Blondie songs. Union City Blue, Shayla, Eat to the Beat's good. Accidents Never Happen, Die Young, Stay Pretty. She didn't, did she? Atomic was a huge hit in England. I mean, so this is one of their best albums. Okay. All right, that's 41, 42, 43, 44. 45 is Nick Lowe's Labor of Lust. I liked Jesus of Cool, which I hope I put on my 1978 show. This is good too. Labor of Lust. Cruel to Be Kind, Cracking Up. Make Me Skin Deep. Switchboard Susan. I used to like that one too. That's all the ones I can remember. But anyways, he was cool, Nick Lowe. And he had our attention for those first two albums. Then he's kind of faded away, to the point that like by the mid 80s when I saw him live, I think opening up for Costello, I remember thinking of him as like a faded glory. But this, the late 70s, I think, were his heyday. All right? All right. All right. 46 is Cheap Trick, the last of their classic run of 70s albums. Dream Police. This might be the least of their 70s albums, but I'll bet you, because I've got all the ones from the 80s, I'll bet you if I played all those albums back to back, I might think Dream Police is better than any other 80s albums. They did a good one in 84, was it? There was a good kind of comeback album, but anyways, Dream Police is a classic. The song, oh, there you go. I can't read them. There's other good songs too. It's not as good as the previous three or the live album, but I like it, and it's the last one I can recommend. All right. That's 46. 47, Live at the Witch Trials. Little Marquis Smith for you. The Fall. I really haven't pursued the career of The Fall, perhaps to the extent as I should. I've enjoyed virtually every Fall album I've ever owned, but I do not have them all. Certainly not enough to do a Fall show. And even though, the original band probably mean nothing to Mark, because Mark is like, or, he was, what did he say once? The fall is me playing with your grandma on bongos or whatever. That shows you how he thought of musicians as cattle. But these early fall albums are real good, I think, anyway. All right, that's 47. 48 is the Slits Cut. Now I was gonna look for the Rainbows too, and I forgot. I probably should include the Rainbows because that's two good kind of, punk, female punk albums from the time. I didn't get into the Raincoats until way later when Kurt Cobain started bigging them up in the 90s. I had heard of the Slits way before that. So, and the great song, Typical Girls, the 45 mix is different than the LP mix. So whichever one you have heard before is probably the one you're going to say is the best. Okay, 49 will be the last of my great Wire albums in the 70s, 154. Not as good as Chairs Missing or Pink Flag, but it's still worthy, still good enough. I used to use that phrase, good enough. Played it, didn't play it as much as the two previous ones, but I still like it. It's still making my top 50. All right, Wire, 154. Here's another kind of punk album, if you want to call it punk. The Heartbreakers with, Johnny Thunders, That Heartbreakers. Live at Max's Kansas City, a great live album. I got some live albums on here, don't I, from 1960. I've always liked live albums, folks. Did my New York Dolls show last summer. None of you guys watched it, but that's okay. I'm still a big fan. I like Johnny Thunders. All right, that's my top 50. We only got 20 more to go. Okay. 51 through 60, shall we? These are still really good albums, guys. We're not running out here. Dawn of the Dickies. The Dickies released two albums in '79, and I'm going to start both of you. And I played them a lot. These were like the LA's own Ramones or something. They had a sense of humor. The lyrics were funny. The songs were great. And, you get the bonus tracks here with some of the singles. Check it out, guys. Incredible Shrinking Dickies. 52 is Van Halen. My friends and I kind of saw this as something of a disappointment after the classic debut. But of course, over the years, I've come to realize this album kicks ass. You know what I think slows it down? It shouldn't have started off with You're No Good. That was just a hit from the Nirvana stand a few years earlier. We all knew it. What was Van Halen doing? Not only covering that song, which it wasn't her song anyway, but putting it as the first song on your album. Hell, put Dead or Alive as the first song or something, but anyway, but this was all over the radio. Dance the Night Away, that was a hit. Bottoms Up, love that one. Spanish Flag was in the DOA. Woman in Love, Beautiful Girls was a hit. It's just carried them right on into 1980 when they did, Women and Children First. All right, 152, 53 is Aerosmith's Night in the Ruts. This is the last really good Aerosmith album. It's the last one that had Joe Perry for many years. After this, they released their greatest hits album in 1988, and that one sold like hotcakes. But and then the band kind of broke up. Well, they didn't really broke up, but Joe left and Tom left too, right? I can't remember. And they weren't as good, for a while. And then they came back and they had all those song doctors. But Aerosmith were kings of American hard rock in the 70s. And this is a solid album. No hits, but it's consistent. It's probably more consistent than Draw the Line. But I'm not sure if the highlights on Draw the Line are not better than the highlights on this album. But I like it. A Night in the Ruts, right in the nuts, whatever you want to call it. 53. 54 is Back to the Egg. Wings, the last Wings album. There is a pretty cool Wings, Paul McCartney and Wings documentary right now on Amazon called Man on the Run. Of course, they barely even talk about this album. They barely talk about most of the Wings albums. I liked it. It's got some rockin' songs on here. I definitely like it better than McCartney 2, which came out the next year. He would make an album better than this until 3 years later when he made, Tug of War in '82. And I like this better than London Town in '78. So, and I like this better than Wings of the Speed of Sound in '76. This was, I think, Wings' best album since Venus and Mars. Yep, I said it. There you go. Okay, there was no Yes album in 1979, but there was offshoots of Yes, and the Steve Howe album is my favorite Steve Howe album, which is to say I like it better than Beginnings, where he sings. This is a Japanese version. It's the Obi. But this, this has some solid stuff on it. Not that you ever heard this on the radio. Hell, you didn't hear Tormato from the previous year on the radio, but I like this. And I love me some Yes. So I'm here to promote Yes, even on an off year in '79. Okay, I just did my Santana show, I think last week. David Dip, Carlos Santana. And I can't remember. Even then, I had a hard time remembering the title. God, did I write it down? No, I did not. Oh, well, that's going to be bad. But, if you, Silver Dreams, Golden something. Also, Marathon came out in '79. That sold better. It had the hits on it. I think this is a more solid album, though. All right? So, if you're looking for some Santana to give yourself the Carlos itch, or to scratch your Carlos itch in this year, I'm going to recommend this over Marathon. Read my first comment at the bottom, and I'll get the title right. Sorry, folks. All right, so that's 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56. This is 57. Okay, this is, make sure the CDs don't fall out, Dawn of the Dickies. They're still pretty good, but not quite as good second LP. Although some people might think this is better. It's another, virtually equally as good album of, humor and punk and catchy songs. Dickies, another band to release 2 quality albums in '79, like Joe Jackson. All right. 58 is The Raven, The Stranglers. Another quality punk album. These guys were older than the usual punk bands at the time, but they were fairly solid and fairly consistent for a few years there. I think this was the last album they made in the '70s, and I'm telling you, it's worth your time. See those bonus tracks too? For Raven. All right, 59 is the return of the Allman Brothers, Enlightened Rogues. I liked this album at the time. Looking back now, it might not be quite as good as I wanted it to be or remembered it, but it's still good enough. If I was talking about Back to the Egg being the best McCartney album in years, this was the best Allman Brothers album in years, because they hadn't made an album in years. So to find a better album than this, you have to go back to Brothers and Sisters in '73. So there you go, folks. Enlightened Rogues. Not as good as the ZZ Top album that year, but still good. Okay, number 60 is Alex Chilton. He of the Box Tops and, Big Star. Like Flies on Sherbet. This is a solid, what do you call this? Post-punk? He wasn't a punk, New wave, singer-songwriter, whatever we're going to call it. This is certainly quirky enough to have been played on stations that would play post-punk and new wave music. I don't think I ever heard an Alex Chilton. It would be like, asking the DJ to play that Roy Loney album that I was telling you guys about. But Alex Chilton was a cool guy. He wrote great music. Like Flies on Sherbet is probably his most famous and acclaimed album. And I'm recommending it to you. Okay, that's 60. I've only got 10 more to go, guys. 10 more to go. 61. Ruts, The Crack. This is a solid record. Again, I'm looking at this thinking I probably should have put it higher. There were so many great punk albums in '79. I think probably more than there were in '78. Again, it's like a last gasp, especially for English punk, because there wouldn't be nearly as many great English punk albums in 1980. But get this one, guys. The Crack, The Ruts. It gets the Matt seal of approval. Okay, that's 61. 62 is Three Imaginary Boys by The Cure. If you watch my Cure video, which was some time ago, I did that in 2024. I covered their career through 92. I said there, I actually liked the Boys Don't Cry American version of this album more. It didn't come out till 1980, but I'm putting some Cure on for 79. And besides, when I get to 1980, if I do that show, because these songs are a pain in the ass to put together, I'm going to show you their 1980 album. But nevertheless, great stuff on here. 10:15 on Saturday night, I love. Accuracy is great. Grinding Halt's great. Subway Song is good. I could do without the Foxy Lady redo. Fire in Cairo is a great song that should have been on Staring at the Sea. Yeah, the Imaginary Boys. And then you get a bunch of rarities, but you don't get Killing an Arab because that was already verboten, taboo by the time this double disc was made. All right, that's 71, 70, no, it's 62, 63 is the first Tom Verlaine album. This is a great one too, but I did my television show last summer. You guys didn't watch it. So I'm a big fan of television and Tom Verlaine. This is a solid record. I like this album at least as much as I like Adventure, So, and that album seems to get more acclaim. Of course, the classic is Marquee Moon, but if you love Marquee Moon, check out Adventure, check out Tom Verlaine, and check out Dreamtime too. That's from 81. But I'll get to that one if I do an 81 show. Tom Verlaine, it sounds just like television. I mean, it's his guitar playing, it's his voice. If you dig television, you'll like that. At 63, 64, Scorpions, Love Drive. This has Michael Schenker on it, and he was playing with his brother, and UFO didn't end, but his tenure with UFO ended. He only did this one album, which I think is great. Love Drive. It's a cheesy kind of male chauvinist cover, but this is metal after all. No real radio songs, I don't think, right? Piece of meat, always somewhere, coast to coast, can't get enough. No, but the whole album's fairly solid though too. So there you go. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's 65. Uncle Jam Wants You. I feel bad I haven't shown you guys. For every year in the 70s, there was at least one good Parliament or Funkadelic album. This is what I'm showing you for 79. I've listened to P-Funk a lot more than the showings on my shows would indicate. This is a solid record. I like the Electric Spanking of War Babies too in 81. But this is later period Funkadelic, and it's still I think it's still prime George Clinton. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 actually. So this is 66. The Roaches. I don't know if you remember this. These girls were like a kind of a critically acclaimed band. I want to say Robert Fripp played on this record too, if memory serves. That's probably how I got into it. Robert Christgau championed them. It's good. I think they were New York based. Never heard this in San Diego growing up. This was an album I had to be hipped to, and I think I read about it because I don't think anybody ever told me about the Roaches. I like it though, especially if I have any female viewers out there. Check out the Roaches. All right. 6. 67 is Dire Straits' Communique. Not as good as the debut, right? Not as good as Making Movies, but good enough, right? I think his brother was still, Mark's brother was still in the band at the time. Ooh, there we go. There you go, David Knopfler. Yes, he was. Once Upon a Time in the West, Where You Think You're Going to Communicate. It's great. Lady Writer, that was the one he used to play on the radio. I mean, not a whole lot of famous songs on here, but any Dire Straits album is pretty solid, at least through Brothers in Arms. So pick it up if you don't have it. Okay, we're winding down now. Last 3. 68. Well, back to my Yes fixation. Bill Bruford's One of a Kind. This is a solid fusion album. Now, of course, he's an ex-Yes drummer, but he's also an ex-King Crimson drummer at this time. But he would return to King Crimson. So I think in the end I do associate Bill Bruford more with King Crimson than I do with Yes. Even though he plays on you know, the 3 probably greatest Yes albums. So I like this. A lot of prog artists kind of drifted over to fusion when they were, especially the drummers, because, you know, Brand X too, Phil Collins. But anyways, I like this album a lot. And also, it's going to segue into UK's second album, Danger Money. The first one's better, obviously. I mean, I'm looking at this. Yeah, this has got Eddie Jobs and you know, this is my brain fog right now. The great guitar player who played on the first album, Alan Holdsworth, is gone by then, and you know, so's Bruford. But I mean, it's still pretty good. Danger Money. Again, prog is really starting to fold by 1979. So any kind of proggy type sounding album, I enjoy. And as my last album of my 70th choice for 1979, the wonderful It's Alive. I would have ranked this high, the Ramones album, their live album, but there's no new material on here, but they do tremendous versions of all the songs. This box set is 4 CDs and there's LPs of shows that they recorded for this album. It kicks ass, as indeed every Ramones album kicks ass from the 70s. You know, I do like the Phil Spector album from 1980, but it's not as good as any of the 70s Ramones LPs. So that's my show. Ooh, almost an hour. When I do 1980, I don't know if I'm going to do 70 albums again. It takes a long time to find this many CDs, but 80 was just as good as 79, so maybe I will keep it at 70 for a while, but eventually I'll have to go down to 60 and then 50, because it's just, you know, I'm getting too old for this. Matt, signing off.